everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Young Conductors Podcast. We are your hosts, Sean and Cole.
Today, we'll be welcoming my teacher, mentor, and friend, Dr. Meredith Bowen, today on the podcast. And she'll be discussing ideas around decentering the conductor. But first, let's welcome her. Hey, Dr. Bowen.
Hello, Cole and Sean. Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
So before we jump into the theme of what we're discussing, Dr. Bowen, we're hoping that you could just give a little background about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I grew up in South Central Pennsylvania to a very musical family. Did the whole choir and band and orchestra thing in high school. Went on to my undergraduate at Westchester University in Pennsylvania. I have my undergrad in music education, and my instrument was voice. I moved to Michigan and took a job, which ended up not working out. And so I went back to school because what do you do, right, at that point in your life? And so I started my master's. After that, I cobbled together jobs for a number of years, finished my doctorate, and applied for all the jobs in the universe, and happened to land in Radford, Virginia, where I've been for 7 years and tenure and promoted now. And so I'm super excited about that. And that's a little bit of my background and what I've been doing.
So how would you
Very excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
How would you describe yourself as a conductor teacher? It's a very tough question.
I know. I mean, you should have given me these questions ahead of time, Cole. Sorry, I'm joking. No. How would I describe myself? So I think of myself as a democratic leader. I go on the idea that everybody has something to offer the ensemble, and so people should feel free to bring their ideas forward. And so I try to show the music through my body, and I try to facilitate people's learning instead of spoon feeding them notes and rhythms.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's interesting because I know that's a very tough question to ask because there's so many things that could come across, but everything that you said thus far is so spot on. I mean, being someone who has been in your choir and being someone who also watches you from the outside of things, all of these ideas are always present in the classroom, and I think that is super awesome. And so to transition into the topic of today, which is just very conversational, and most of the time, Dr. Bowen and I have these conversations anyhow. I'll just go in and ask all the questions all the time and just pick her brain. But something that we've talked about in my private lessons before and just in conversation is decentering the conductor and what that looks like, because I've never heard of that before. And I think most times, you hear a lot of people say that conductors it's a dictatorship. What they say is how it goes. They are in control of everything from the style, the music choices, the learning process. Everything is dictated by them. And so I think today is going to be a really good conversation. So I want to know, because I know this didn't stem from you. We've talked about you've kind of learned this from your mentors and so on, but where did this idea of decentering the conductor come from?
Well, it started with Doreen Rao, I think, in her work in where she believed that you could teach music through performance. And part of that, when you're learning, you have to participate, right? And so in order for you to participate at the level of intrinsic musicality, right? Something that's coming from you. You have to be given that space to do that and explore. And that's one of her basic principles is, everybody in the ensemble has something to offer musically, right? And so I learned from her. I started going to CME in 2011, and one of her students, Sandra Snow, became a great teacher of mine at MSU, a mentor, a friend. And so, this philosophy has kind of been what I've been working toward since I was introduced to that in 2011.
Could you remember when you were first in, what did it feel like? What were you doing when you first experienced this? Because I feel like it's probably really different from what a lot of people see on the podium.
Well, I was thinking about that. I was trying to think about questions you might ask me. And that is one question that I came up with. And so, yes, I understood it as philosophy when I worked with Doreen in 2011. When I remember it actually happening to me, meaning that I had agency in the choir classroom. I was in my college choir at Westchester, and David Devaney chose for us to do Bach B minor Mass that year. It was a huge undertaking, right? And he was getting period instruments, and we were doing it in Philadelphia. All these great things that was happening, right? And we were learning. There are lots of fugues, as you can imagine, in that. And we were learning that, and he is a proponent of Dalcroze. And so we were doing eurythmics. And, we were in 4 big circles, sopranos, altos, tenors, basses, and folks were walking the rhythm and singing and all the things, right? All the Dalcroze stuff.
It sounds very familiar.
I know, right? And I remember in that moment thinking, there's something about Bach that's so satisfying. Anyway, but I remember thinking that, my entire being was in the music. I had found flow, right? When the challenge is there and you've got it going and things are moving and you're all things are good, right? And I felt like I could make mistakes in that space, because I was in a circle, right, with my peers, and I wasn't looking at the conductor who was going to say, you're doing this, and he was a bit of also a yeller kind of thing. And I realized that we were annoying children as well, right? But I was able to make a mistake. I was able to follow my musical ideas. It wasn't prescribed to me, and I was like, oh, okay. I felt really musical at that moment. And that's what I am constantly trying to open up the space for people to experience music making.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing, because your whole musical, so your young musical life, you automatically think okay, conductor is the boss. We always are doing what they're doing. If they're mad, then you better watch out. And right. I think that's totally something that could be changed. And I feel like it is changing slowly over time. Sorry, there's my cat.
Hi, Kitty.
Yeah, I think it's super.
He's about to eat your face.
I know. He's like, I want to be in the podcast too. Come on. But no, I think it's you are no different than I mean, obviously you've had extensive training and whatnot, but you're no different than any of the other musicians in the room. And it should be like a collaborative process. So.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting because being in Dr. Bowen's choir, once again, I can like talk about this firsthand, and I've learned so much, you know, as a chorister, but also like as a teacher, and I'm still growing and trying to get out of this whole mindset that I have to do all of the work myself. And I know Dr. Bowen has told me before, like maybe say less words, do more actions, with all these things that are always popping up. But I think agency is a really big word that stuck out to me whenever you mentioned that earlier, because I feel that as a chorister in that setting, having agency and taking control of the situation of like, or taking back control, or maybe control for the first time of your music making experience was just like so exciting for me to be able to do that, you know, and being the musician that I am today, that's a lot easier said than some other people who are in our classrooms, especially if there's anybody listening that are maybe like middle school teachers or people who work with beginning high school. Like you're maybe not going to get the same type of experiences that you would at higher music making levels. But I don't know. I think I've taken a lot away from it. So yeah, I definitely appreciate you sharing that. So thinking about, oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
I just, you know, just something to throw out here as you're saying that, you know, Doreen's work is really founded on what I said before, the philosophy, but also that philosophy that works for children. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's just because they're children or younger artists doesn't necessarily mean that they're less musical. And we always have to remember that and just meet them where they are, I think. And I just wanted to make sure to put a fine point on that, that this philosophy works for everyone, right? If you watch children on a playground, they make up songs all the time. Mm-hmm. They have musical impulses, right? We just have to find a way to capture that imagination for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So transitioning from that, actually, I didn't realize my background became blurred. I don't think it is. I don't know. But so thinking about the rehearsal and classroom setting, like what are some examples beyond some of the ones you've already mentioned that maybe some teachers could try to start implementing themselves about decentering themselves?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, the whole circle thing I love in every instance. You know, even if you circle as an entire ensemble, it decenters the person up in front, right? Because it just does. Mm-hmm. There are different power dynamics that you can play around with in the ensemble. So like if people are sitting, what happens when the conductor sits and sits at the same level as they do, right? In the ensembles, in choral ensembles, you know, we break into part circles a lot. And I try to give folks the opportunity to, you know, figure out things on their own and to listen to each other and to take initiative as leaders within their sections. So I do that a lot. For example, I may take a section of music, let's say just the A section of something that is easily readable with solfege, right? And I'll send folks to their sections and give them the starting pitches and say, okay, go. You know, work with a neighbor. You know, figure out who has the tools that you need, right? Ask friends for advice. Let's work on this together, you know, and it hopefully, you know, in the perfect world, it creates community as well as helping folks have the opportunity to make mistakes in a safe environment. We also do that a lot with doing historical backgrounds of pieces, and to talk about text or language or whatever of the pieces that we have, where we'll split into multiple groups and do a little research, and then so everybody has the opportunity to understand part of the assignment, and then they have to go into quartets with other folks to understand the big part of the assignment. So those are things that I do. What other things, Cole?
Well, I know you were talking about that concert idea that you had about picking music.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to hear your brainstorm. I know it's not like a finalized idea. But I think it'd be interesting for people to hear it. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, like, I don't know. I spend a lot of time in my garden. We'll just say that. And there's a lot of weeding to be done, and so my brain will often go on long tangents, and I'll go down like the rabbit hole of thinking of things. And so one of those.
What else would you do in the garden?
Right, exactly. And so one of my thoughts was, this idea of how, if I were to decenter myself, how far can I take that? Right. So part of my job is teaching the notes and the rhythms. That's easy to decenter myself from that, because I'm growing musicians, right? It's easy to decenter some of the research and work that way, right? I can do that. But I choose the literature that people are learning. Right. And that's kind of the last thing that I am the autocrat of, I suppose. Right. And is it possible to set up a system that helps people choose literature based on, what they'd like to say? And in particular, I was thinking that this would be a project for the choral music ed students who are going to be teachers in a couple of years, right? So what are you going to say? How are you going to choose this music? But still that's still the hierarchical thing, right? So then how to decenter that even further? I don't know. Is it possible?
I don't know. That seems like such a fascinating idea, of having students have a say in the literature, in the whole idea. I mean, I will say, as an example, Dr. Bowen, we recently had a concert where we centered in around ideas about gun violence. And it was a very heavy topic. And I remember Dr. Bowen, we gathered together as a group afterwards, and you asked for feedback, which I think is something that not a lot of people do. So I'm thinking about the decentering as well. Like, you're open to hear what people's thoughts are. But you took it one step further and asking them, what are, like you just said, what are things that are important to you? What could we discuss? And the biggest thing that most people said was mental health. And that is first of all, it's really exciting to hear people be willing to have these kinds of conversations through song. I love that idea. I love it. But yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I'm sure that there are many people who allow students to choose, like, oh, I have 3 pieces. Which one of the 3 that I've already pre-approved would you like to do for our concert or whatever? But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think if I were to follow my idea down this path, I would probably, like we were talking about, because in our lessons, you did most of the work for that concert. So the programming part of that, like, how can I take what we did, right? Asking about, is there a storyline here, right? And having suggestions thrown. I don't know, maybe that's one way. And then I don't know, it'd have to be voted on. I don't know. It seems like a lot of process and a lot of headache, right? For the typical conductor teacher. Right. So I don't know that, I don't know.
There's not like a set path. And
there's no set path.
Right.
That's okay. I mean, we're all human and we make mistakes, and I'm sure there are many people, and Sean and I are still pretty at the beginning of our paths, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's exciting to explore unknown territory before and dig up new things in your garden and plant new seeds. Do they bloom? Do they blossom? No. Okay, great. Let's try another idea.
Move on.
Exactly. Well, and I feel like I saw something on the social medias over the last couple of years. I don't know. Don't quote me on any of this, but except the kernel of the story, which was there was a music teacher who organized it somehow so that their students composed all of the music for that concert.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like they composed it, like they chose the theme, they composed the music, the teacher facilitated the learning, they did all the things. So I think it is possible. I don't know that it's possible where I am and what I'm doing. I think if you have an entire year devoted to something like that would be, and if you see students every day, that would be fascinating to see.
Right.
And the thing that really fascinates, my question is, right, is what do the students get out of all of that? What are they learning?
Yeah, that would definitely be an awesome concert, especially for the students that are like either composition majors or interested in composing. That would be really exciting for them. I know, like, when I was in high school at the end of the year, we would have this like survey. We would review the concert, like a video of our concert, and then we'd be like, what did we think went well? What didn't go well? Blah, 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 all this stuff. And then at the very end, there were two questions. The first question was, what type of theme would you like to see for a next concert? And the other question was, what piece or song would you like to play for the next concert? So even just those little nuggets, I think, can be very special for students as well.
Giving them voices.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. It's an exciting idea, I think, because, I will say, like, some of my background, it was not, there wasn't a whole lot of, I don't know, what word should I say? I didn't have a whole lot of
collaboration.
Collaboration, but I mean, I just felt like I was a singer. I was just the tenor. I needed to sing out and do the things.
Right.
And it really wasn't until I got to Radford where I felt, not only as a chorister, but as a conductor teacher, I felt like I was one with the music that we were making. And I think being like truly a part of the music learning process and being, I don't know, being able to dive into the music so much deeper, because as singers, like, we are our instruments. And I really feel that it's important to be connected. And I'm sorry, Sean, but I think singers, we have this unique opportunity to, like, use words with our music making. And I don't know, I just, when we dive into the decentering ideas that Dr. Bowen's talking about, I really just, I don't know how to put words to quite put, but being one with the music really.
Right.
Really,
yeah, I think we get what you mean. Yeah.
I feel like, isn't there an orchestra that does that? Like, they don't have a conductor at all. Do I remember that from something?
I'm sure. I think there are probably several several orchestras that do that.
Pop quiz.
But-
I mean, it would just be curious to know how they operate,
Right.
like who makes some of those decisions, right? Is
I
it
know, like,
is
when
it a
I
group
see,
effort?
like, when there's concerts where they don't have like a conductor conducting a certain piece, it's normally like the concert master that's taking
Okay.
that role. So I guess it's decentering and then centering somebody else.
Yeah. Sure.
Right. But
I
no,
once
I'm
heard
sure
someone
there's
say-
orchestras that do that.
I
there's-
once heard
there's
someone
this-
say that.
Certain.
Oh, sorry. I'm just going to say on that idea, I think I once heard somebody say that the ultimate goal for a conductor teacher is to be able to walk away from the ensemble and allow them
Right.
to make music. So if there is an orchestra that is doing that like all the time, I'd be interested to find out more about their music learning process and see if there's any benefits. So sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
mean to.
No, sorry. That just reminds me of something my conducting teacher says. He says, you do all the preparation. You can do all the preparation you want, but when you get to the concert, it's their concert. Like, there's nothing that you can do that's going to change or fix or do anything like that. So that's something that reminded me of that. Okay. And there's the other cat. Sorry.
Kitchen number 2.
I should really lock them up when I'm doing this.
What were you about to say, Dr. Bowen? I'm so sorry for interrupting twice.
I have no idea. That was so long ago, Cole.
Early segment.
I'm already in
It's
2
gone.
years' time.
It's gone.
I'm already programming 2 years ago. Ahead.
Well,
so I go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say thank you to the work that Dr. Bowen is doing, because it seems like that she's really making a lasting impression on her students, even though I only know one of her students, but he seems to be really getting a lot from you. So
Well, thank
Definitely,
you.
yeah.
For sure.
Everybody always said, that whole story about teachers. What is it? If you can just change the life of one student.
Right. And you succeeded. Exactly.
Check.
I got it. All right. I can retire now, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, not yet. One more
No.
year. And then
One
you
more
can
year.
retire. One more.
I'm still too young. Sorry.
So I think before we start wrapping this up, I think thinking about student-wise, what benefits have you seen from this decentering in regards to students? And I don't know, has there been any tidbits that they've shared with you that has kind of stuck with you, if any?
Yeah, and the folks that I have heard from are the young women who come to me, little mousy girls who find their voice after singing with me, and so I don't know, I was that young girl, who grew up in Appalachia, who wasn't seen or heard.
Mhm.
And so I don't know, there's something about me as the model or me as the teacher or the teaching aspect of it, but I have known a number of young women who have found their voices after interacting with the choirs at Radford. And so that makes my heart really happy.
Yeah.
Of course,
And
I may
beyond
have
that.
done that for the young men. I don't know. They haven't told me that in as many words, but yeah.
Well, and just to see the representation is probably really important for them too.
Yeah, sure. So, I think I don't know, a number women in general, we aren't often asked our opinions on things, right? And so when I decenter myself and I say, well, what do you think about this music?
Mm-hmm.
That requires that they think about it and say something.
They do
out
get
loud.
to say something. Yeah.
Right. And so if I have helped them along their path through music, then great.
Yeah, it's pretty special, I think.
For sure.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I think if any of you young people, you young conductors that are listening to this, so I think a big takeaways for me is that not everybody has all the answers or the right algorithm for decentering themselves and doing all the right things. You're going to mess up. You're going to learn. It's going to be hard. But I think starting small and having a long-term vision and just being willing to decenter yourself, I think is a really big step in the right direction. So yeah. So thank you so much, Dr. Bowen, for talking to us. I really, really appreciate it. And I know
You're
a lot
welcome.
of people are going to take away some interesting things from today.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Bowen, is there anything that you would like to share, like at all? Any advice? Anything? You don't have to.
Oh my gosh.
Another
Like it
really
could just
broad
be
question.
like it could just be like my favorite food is this, and you should.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, don't ask for her favorite.
Don't ask. No, don't ask for anything favorite or anything. Well, I will tell you, I'm gonna go out and chop down some trees now, so that'll give you just a little excitement.
Well, that's good. See, conductor or lumberjack? You can.
You're right. Exactly. Just call me Farmer Bowen.
Okay, I will if you want. If you insist.
No. I'm just kidding.
Well, yes. Well, we really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your words of wisdom. But before we go, we have one last thing that we like to do. And Sean, why don't you take that away?
Sure. So, as you guys know, we like to share some conductors to watch. And for this episode, I chose Christina Polska. There's a video of her conducting the Coriolan Overture with the Flanders Symphony Orchestra, and that's like one of my favorite recordings. And just her conducting, the way that she's able to just keep everything so, like, I don't know, so centered and honed in. It's really impressive. So if you guys get a chance to watch that, you definitely should.
Also, simple plug, she's a left-handed conductor.
Oh, yeah. How could I forget to say that?
How could you forget?
Right.
She's a left-handed conductor. She's awesome. And mine happens to be one of Dr. Bowen's friends, Dr. Jennifer Sengen from Georgia State University, who she's abroad right now, right, Dr. Bowen?
In Germany. Mm-hmm.
Germany, yes, for some...
the International Conductors Exchange Program.
Ooh.
Yeah. She recently, I'm sure some people saw on TikTok if you're on the choir talk, but she recently conducted the Texas All-State with the treble choir, and videos were posted of the stuff that they were doing, and it went pretty viral on there. But I love specifically a video of her doing Order My Steps with the Georgia State treble choir. It's pretty awesome, and she is one with the music, and so we were lucky to have her come visit us last fall as an artist in residence at Radford, and took a lot away from her. So she has a lot of similar ideas and of Dr. Bowen, and is very Delcros and movement oriented as well. So yeah. Well, thank you so much for watching, everyone. We really appreciate it, and we hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. So
thanks, everybody.
All right, bye, y'all.